roading and 40 years of land use. To me, this is one of the biggest things to hit the airwaves. So it's critical that we get involved. And I want to share with you the highlights, the key points, the talking points, and a 4-step call to action so we can go back, share this, and get our troops, our followers, fans, members, whatever, dialed in so that they become part of the solution so we can keep track of this and what it means. I'm going to share my screen. All right, host, you have to let me in, share my screen. I can't believe I did that. Okay. All right, so now I can share. How's that look? Can you see it?
Yes.
Todd?
Looks great.
So you see the big Dell picture in 30 by 30? Okay, cool. So here we go. The what the heck? They do.
Is that Bill?
Yeah, right.
You changed.
What the heck happened?
Click on your red icon on your taskbar at the bottom. Is that your PowerPoint thing down below, down low?
Yes.
And now we're on not sharing anymore.
Why is it doing that to me? Share
If you
screen.
have multiple screens, you have to drag one over.
Forgive me. There it is. Okay, let me try again. Is it back on?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Looks great, Dell.
All right. Jiminy Christmas. So basically, Biden put this together as a pledge. A lot of governors have jumped in to conserve 30% of America by the year 2030. It has several names, and you're going to hear from your troops all these different varieties because every conservation group in the world is grabbing onto this. Technically, it's conserving and restoring America the Beautiful. It's an executive order. Now, it's not a law. As you see, it's not policy, and it needs funding, obviously. But every step they take in this process, they're going to be looking for ways to make this happen and get money behind it. To me, it's biggest thing that's hit us in years, and I'll cover some of the years in a minute, but it's basically it's a climate change, climate type task force underlying message throughout the entire save 30% of America by 2030. Probably it's going to be the biggest thing to hit us if we aren't at the table as far as motorized recreation. They market it really carefully, if you spend time reading some of this stuff, as reversing the impacts, of the negative stuff that biodiversity is, how it's dwindling and extinctions are on the rise. So they really market this well. And climate change is, as you all know, is the biggest terminology, the buzzword now. And some are saying, is this the climate fix? 30 by 30. Bad news. Every environmental group out there has already started saying 50% by 2050. Now, I'm not going to be here in 2050, but some youngster like Todd might still be around kicking. He's Navy, they never sink, so he could be around. But our kids and grandkids and those people coming behind us, if they're going to start talking about 50% by 2050, that's scary. There's more to this than meets the eye. I'm not going to get way deep into it because I don't want to keep you too long, but the indigenous rights, Native Americans, is heavily kind of underlying a lot of this effort, and equal access for the disadvantaged crowd, shall we say. but indigenous rights, front and center. And you see that second one where it says, they're saying that biodiversity declines more slowly on tribal lands. So there's going to be a big push to get more conservation on tribal Native American lands as a way of, and you see it in quotes, righting the past wrongs. A lot of our conservation efforts in the past have, to some people, infringed upon the rights of Native Americans, indigenous tribes. So it's going to be a big deal. And I think Rose was with me, and we were together, and Jim, we went to one of these recent, was that a 30 by 30 title? Anyway, they started it with a Native American blessing, this room full of 300 people. Rose, you were on visual, I think, or Zoom or something, but a Native American blessing instead of the Pledge of Allegiance. So that tells you where the priorities are. To me, an old soldier, that doesn't make my day, shall we say. The farms, ranches, working lands will be part of that 30% only if they're managed sustainably. And that's the other biggest buzzword today, sustainable. Rose knows it. Most of you that are in land use positions know that if we don't say sustainable when we write something to an agency or a politician, they're going to shoot us down. The principles, they want to redefine what is actually considered conserved versus
All
protected.
right, let's keep going.
Pardon?
No, sorry, that was mine.
What?
Some made a noise.
I didn't hear what Steve said.
I clicked on something on the other screen that made a noise.
Oh, okay. All right. You can see those little highlights there. It's when they say guiding principles, all right, that means every decision they make is kind of like a strategic plan in your organization. It's supposed to guide your decisions. So when you see things like, pursue conservation, support voluntary stewardship, it's all the buzzwords and language that we've heard in the past coming together in the strongest effort I've seen in a long time. So when they say that they 12% of America basically is considered kind of protected for biodiversity, and they want 30% by 2030. Well, that's 440 million more acres set aside. I think that's twice the size of Texas, or the size of Texas, or some such thing. I don't like to pick on Todd, but he is in Texas.
You will just take it anyways. We Texas. We'll let you have
No.
California though.
When you look at federal protection, wilderness, national parks, refuges, marine conservation, protected areas, and the bottom one there, it does not include areas managed for sustainability, like farmlands and those like conservation programs or tribal lands. They have not really come out and talked about, state vehicle recreation areas or private play areas for motorized recreation, but you got to wonder where we stand in that additional 18% they need to make up from 12 to 30%. And I look at it, a couple of graphics here, that's just me trying to come up with a visual, but who's, I think that's Todd's Jeep right there getting cut out of the picture, but Dell's Jeep's still in it. So that's all right. We can live with that. But that's where we need our troops, and I'll get to that in a minute. So just quickly, people wonder how we got here. This 1964 was the biggest thing to hit for me, the Wilderness Act, but the whole 60s and 70s, free love and current environmentalism, 80s global warming. They changed it to climate change. And how can we say that's bad? Climate change, that's just a natural process. The 2000s, John Stewart and several California people and United, other groups, we were really inundated with the Wildlands Project. same kind of thing. Biodiversity was the big buzzword then, and sustainable habitat, biodiversity all came into play in the 2000s, saving the world. So climate change now occupies everything that the environmentalist conservations do at some point or another. It's all about climate change. And it all relies on the marketing, and the environmental groups are going to take these slogans like 50% by 2050, whatever, 30 by 2030, and they're going to run with that as much as they run with the idea of climate change. So what's our call to action? In my estimation, the first thing we got to do is, and you all are doing this anyway, but get people involved, join what they think, what I do. Join and then be involved, whatever makes sense to you, local, regional, state. I tell my same speech, people need to join and be part of our organized groups, because we're the only ones fighting for the average person out there that's just wants to go play. The second thing to do is to learn on our part as leaders. Just cruising the internet for Biden 3030, literally weeks of reading on my part, just to get to this point where I sort of kind of understand it. But we need to, if we start seeing funding being thrown around to support a 3030 project, motorized recreation leadership needs to be sitting at that table. And it can't always be all of us. That's another discussion, but we need to be at that table with somebody who's talking for us. And then the third thing that I tell the troops is always write letters. When your favorite group says we need letters, people need to step up and write those letters. Here's the most important one. If we can get our troops and followers, fans, members, just to be the eyes and ears. So when they hear something that looks like 3030, talks like conservation or a new definition of protection, changing the landscape level activities. In California alone, Governor Newsom signed the same kind of a thing, an executive order to do the 30%. And his executive order said to preserve and protect California, to conserve 30% from development and industrial exploitation. So typical environmental language, but we need to be watching for it. If we're going to be carbon neutral by 2035, that means as vehicle owners, in California at 2035 we're not supposed to be spitting out carbon. Now that could change with a different governor, but you know what I'm saying? It's a big deal. And January 31st, I think Rose sent me a note, we're going to have another 3030 thing going on with the California Resources Agency, just for California. They have 30 agencies and almost 100 programs implementing 3030. We just need those eyes and ears to be watching and to tickle Josh or Chris or Dell, Matt, somebody that says it's on in this area and this is what they're proposing. And we figure out if we want to prioritize and make that something to put on the table for us to be there. Biden has set aside, is looking for $500 billion from the Great Outdoors Act, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, different places to put behind programs that will implement this 30 by 30, which is, it's a lot of money, but as you all well know, Congress has to get behind anything that involves spending the taxpayers' money. So hopefully this is all politically driven by however the Congress steps in or steps out, and how politics shape up over the next few years. But that fourth step, be the eyes and ears, to me is where we're going to make our money, shall we say. Just having the troops get a hold of us and those people in leadership roles and motorized recreation to say, hey, we need to jump on this. Here's what's going on.
Hey, Dale, can I make a comment there?
Sure.
So, yeah, most people know I work for Chevron, and I'll tell you, we're going to spend a couple $1 billion on carbon sequestration and carbon capture and you know, Chevron, Exxon, Shell, you pick any of the big super majors, they're going to be spending billions of dollars because of trying to make that you know, zero carbon by 2035. It's some of it's from the shareholders that we have that are driving some of that we're spending that money. I mean, and it is right now, it is so hard to get a permit to drill a new well there in California. It is not even funny. And so they are just trying to run oil and gas out of there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and carbon neutral, that's the 20 by 35 carbon neutrality. That's, I can't imagine, but like Todd said, they're going to drive away anything in California that doesn't for Californians. Our next year friend, Matt, are you located in Utah? He's probably on mute. Anyway,
No, I'm in Indiana,
Indiana.
where we can shoot guns still, like
Like,
Texas. We can shoot guns here like you can in Texas.
oh, I see. Oh, thank you.
We don't fight the nonsense like you do in California.
Yeah, but we set the the trends. In fact, I have a Nebraska buddy chimed in tonight, said he couldn't make the Zoom, but his governor came out openly against anything 30-30. So he said, I don't have to worry about it, but I'm afraid that we all have to worry about it. Anything that's not durably conserved, in other words, it is like an irrevocable will, durable, it's going to start coming to the surface to be stepped on and reshaped. They're going to look for durable conservation and protection efforts. We just need to make sure those eyes and ears, that we're out there. So what's next? Like I said, funding, the rallying cry, we're going to hear it until you're sick of it. That fourth one there, farmers, ranchers, not in my backyard. Again, I think it's going to be everybody's backyard before it's done. And there's no way around it. If there's land that they can grab and make it durable, as far as conservation and protection, I believe they're going to go after it. Again, the eyes and ears, that's going to be the key. Our members are whoever, let us know when something's going on. And I just saw Mike McGarity. Hi, Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome. I kept it short and sweet, but this is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch the rest of the presentation. But the fourth call to action ended with our members, followers, fans, and friends being the eyes and ears so that we can dial in when motorized recreation needs to be at the table. To me, that's the key. Not that we can fix everything, but at least we need to have people sitting there when the environmentalists are rallying behind 50% by 2050. That's the next rallying call.
That's totally right, Dell. Thank you.
So questions?
Dale, just a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think really one of the most important things you said was being engaged. And, I think at the end of the day, this is going to be project area by project area. For example, I use the Oregon Dunes as an example. Jody Phillips and Save the Riders Dunes. They were headed in a bad direction up there, but they got engaged with their local conservation and environmental groups. They got a seat at the table and have turned that ship around as far as the closures were the way they were going back in 2011 and 12. And for example, myself with the Berryessa Monument, the Mendocino, we've got Motorized recognized as a valued use on that area. And Colorado, there was a monument designated, and some of the Cove guys and stuff that came out, they got Motorized included in that. So that's area by area, project by project. So I think really the most important thing is for the groups in their own areas where they're located are engaged with the conservation groups. If you don't know, if you're up in the Mammoth area, you don't know David Page and some of those guys, you need to know, and you need to start to go to meetings with those. Same, just doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you're at. You need to know who they are, start going to meetings, and be engaged, get that seat at the table, because you can, not everywhere, but you can make a difference, but you have to have skin in the game.
And that goes back to the basic rallying cry of the Sierra Club when they started, you know, act locally, think globally. You know, you can think globally all you want, but your action takes place, like Don was saying, you know, if you have an area of interest, that's where you take a lot of your action. But as the eyes and ears for United Cal 4-Wheel, Blue Ribbon, whomever, you know, if I see something 30-30, I need to be able to channel it to somebody and say, Josh, you got to go fix this. So, questions, comments?
Well, here's one of my other thoughts. I mean, we need to be watching some of those conservation groups out there because they have a lot of money to spend. They will go buy land that, you know, from like some of these farmers and ranchers and then gift it to the government or in
Right.
some form of fashion. And that's one of the ways that they're going to be sneaky about it. And some of it may have, you know, where we've had, you know, access rights across that ranch. And then now they're going to buy up that ranch and then take that away from us. So
Yes.
tell you, well, you're not losing access. You can still go play on it, but we just can't get to it.
And that's going to be kind of the hard part for me to kind of is how do we engage, train, clue our troops in, people that want to help, what to look for. You know, that kind of a access, Todd, that you're talking about happened to me with my hunting land. All of a sudden I can't get to the place I used to hunt because trust for public land, but an in-between section and shut her down.
Yep.
So I had to go, you know, get a helicopter from Chevron, but you know, that was, yeah, right.
Call me, we'll get it there.
Questions? Rose? You have
Yeah, so a couple of things I'm thinking about with this. One is that we have to do a lot of public education with our outreach to our memberships and our different groups. And we need to be empowering our people to also be able to speak to key talking points and spreading the news further around all of our communities, because this is going to happen very fast and very pervasively. And so we need them to know more than just 20 by 30 or 30 by 30 is bad. We need them to know, like out of that 12% that's calculated, they're not counting monuments and oftentimes preserves, sometimes national parks and different types of land that are essentially conserved. They don't count it because it's not fully conserved. And this is going to go so far beyond outdoor recreation suppression so fast with the farmland thing. Something you'll also start to hear coming about in greater frequency is the concept of vertical farming, urban vertical farming. The goal is to actually retire and get rid of large scale farming across America and build warehouse style vertical farms to concentrate public populations into urban areas. And that's part of how they'll get to those 440 million acres is actually removing humans from the land. And when you're in these meetings with environmentalists, they're actively and openly speaking about how humans should not go into the forest and humans should not touch the things that require conservation. So the concept isn't foreign to them. It is still foreign to our people. And I think that we can do another layer of benefit by tying these things in together and helping our folks to understand the key talking points and the bigger picture elements and how they come together. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I feel like we really need to engage our local governments, because when you're thinking about funding, like however many billions of dollars Biden's going to pour at this from the federal level, there's a translation to how that impacts monies at the local level. So an example of that is here in Sierra National Forest, where the Range of Light Monument is proposed. They say, of course, that they wouldn't change any of the local management. So Forest Service purportedly would stay in their management role over the Sierra National Forest that will be swallowed up by the monument. The permanency of that, though, is questionable at best, you know? And so here in Fresno County, which contains the bulk of Sierra National Forest, we actually have a couple of our board of supervisors who are fairly well educated on this and have come out openly to say that they're opposed to the monument. We need more engagement like that at the local level, where boards of supervisors, the sheriff as well, and any other local government that's involved in funding and land planning like Department of Transportation, Department of Public Works, Parks and Rec, all those things. We need them to also have a level of awareness on what these things translate to at the local level, and
Yes.
how their jurisdiction will essentially be stripped away from them sooner, if not immediately, then very soon after these lands go into conservation status under 30 by 30 or monument or whatever else gets them to the 30 by 30. So if we can have local jurisdictions exercising their authority to take over local pockets to counterbalance the bigger effort nationally, that may be a way that we can accelerate our efforts at fighting back. I think we have such powerful voices and momentum in the groups that are represented here and all the affiliate groups that aren't on this call tonight, but that we partner with. But I worry that it still won't be enough, because like you said, Dell, the environmentalists are really, really well funded, and they're already in bed with the politicians who are making these decisions.
Yes.
And so we're going to have to be, I think, really, really creative in how we're going about this. And we do have some leverage that we can exercise through local jurisdiction if we engage with our board of supervisors, our sheriffs, and other county level entities.
Yeah, and in fact, I was emailing, whatever, Facebooking with Mike McGarity. We were talking about the fact that, it'd kind of be easy to think that 30% is already grabbed up in California, but they're claiming by data that is at the most 20 to 24%. So that means another 8 million acres needs to be grabbed up in California alone, let alone Indiana or Utah or whatever. But I mean, they're just going after big chunks. One project at a time. This is eating the elephant. Josh, you have some comments or questions? No?
No, I'm just listening to everybody. Don had his hand up before me, and then it was Jim after that. I might have a comment, but I'm going to wait to see what everybody else says.
Oh, Don. Oh, I'm sorry. And Jim Bramham. Let me take Jim. I didn't even see those hands. Thanks, Josh. Jim, I'm sorry. You're up, Jim.
Oh, Don had his hand up before me.
Oh, he did.
So let him go.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
All right. I'm not ready. Where's my co-host? Rose, come on. Go
I'm
ahead.
no
Well,
longer
my
co-host.
concern, Del, is
Go ahead.
Del, my concern is that everything I've read about this, the goal keeps shifting for the environmentalists. They cannot define or will not define what they classified as protected lands. And we have a designation for that. Some counties, the UN has another definition. Some states have a definition. Almost every environmental group has a definition. But I don't believe that there is an official, even Biden drop-down definition for what is protected under the idea of 30/30. And I'm just wondering, in your reading, and I challenged Rose on this a couple of weeks ago and said, read these things, because I don't have a clear understanding of what they classify as protected. And then I read a deal where the first thing they want to do in California is get all the tribal groups together and do all this stuff and make a decision what it is that is protected. So we're fighting a windmill here, as far as I can see.
Yes, that is true. And I've read 2 reports tonight trying to get that definition. Besides parks, refuges, obvious things. Even the reports say it's still to be defined. So, Don?
I was just going to echo what Rose said about the importance of being engaged with county supervisors and sheriffs and stuff. And that's all critically important. It needs to be done. But as we learned, when I was with Blue Ribbon back in the 90s, we fought against the Clinton monument designations and stuff. So I've been through this rodeo before. None of this is new. They called it something different in the 90s, but it gets back to being engaged again, because if you're not engaged in those early planning efforts, when the monuments or a national conservation area comes up, environmental conservation groups will propose that, and you need to be at that table. Like I said before, if you don't know David Page, or you don't know Bob Snyder up in the Mendocino, or you don't know the local environmental or region environmental leader, you need to be at those meetings, because at the end of the day, as we found out with Clinton, all it takes is a pen. a pen and a phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we kid ourselves if we think that we can save these lands by having big rallies. We did all that with the Clinton monuments. We had rallies in state capitals all over the country. But at the end of the day, all he needed his pen and a phone.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't take away from being engaged. It's important that local pushback from county governments. That's very important in that monument decision process, because the feds, they're cautious about pushing that. But at the end of the day, all it takes is that pen, that signature from the president. So if you can be, if you can craft find some common ground, and you've heard me say this before, if you can find some common ground with conservation groups in that early planning stage, try to do that, because
Okay.
at the end of the day, all it takes is that pen. So
Steve, are you still, where'd Steve go? Oh, Steve, Egbert, United 4-Wheel Drive. You got a comment, question?
No, I didn't have not yet.
Okay, well, how about Matt, next you got something? Comment, question?
So from our end, like we're all over the country, right? But where we push from where I'm from, the Midwest, we don't fight the West Coast land battle. So if I was going to bring something to the board of directors of NACSHA or something like that to support it, we've said this story many times, who do we support? Who's the common front? Who's the people that we can go to and say, hey, let's do the letter writing campaign, or let's support it with some money. We've given money over the years to different groups, whether it's United or Blue Ribbon or that kind of thing. I'm in Indiana, right? I live on 3 acres. I can go shoot my guns. I can do whatever I want. I don't fight the California battle. So that's always kind of our common thing is who's at the forefront of this, who's got lobbyists, who's, thank God that the Congress is split for 2 years, so we're, money's going to be a little bit harder to make happen because Congress is split and that kind of thing. Gridlock is good sometimes. Who do we get behind? I guess that would be my biggest question is who can I go back to the NACSHA folks and say, hey, this is what's going on. Who can we support? How do we, obviously, I know, Del, you've even said, hey, these NACSHA folks are always wanting to give money away, right? So if we want to support this and help this, even though I'm from Indiana, I go to Moab every 5 years. We have lots of friends that go out to Johnson Valley and KOH and do that every year. We have friends that do the Rubicon. We have friends that do that across the country. So where's that common fighting goal?
Yeah.
Right. Like 30 by 30, we talk about it. I can Google it. I can look it up. And the biggest reason I'm here tonight is because I'm not really familiar with this. My day job now has tasked me with many, many responsibilities where I don't have a lot of time to jump on board. But, it's almost 11 o'clock here in Indiana, and I wanted to find out what's going on because I still care, right? Like I still want to go wheeling out west, even though I'm from Indiana where, we have private lands where I can go 4-wheeling. The picture in my background is the Badlands in Attica, Indiana, and take my Jeep down there whenever I want, pay $25 and go wheeling.
Well,
So I don't fight that public battle that's fought out west, but I still go out there and I still enjoy it. So who do we get behind? Where do we push this?
Everybody, like Jeff says, everybody needs it. The one thing too is, and kind of answer your question, we're all working on something. It's not everyone has to work on every.
Josh, where'd you go? You have your hand up. I can't.
Or has the ability to work on everything. But my things right now is our community doesn't support working on, but getting a little traction is awareness for everyone. So if you go to our website, it has everybody's thing on to be supported.
I tell you, Matt, one of my hopes is that there'll
Not
be
that
a lobbying effort. put
it's hard to
together.
answer. Sounds like you're saying,
Steve, you're breaking up for some reason.
Pretty bad, actually.
You're breaking up,
Yeah,
Steve.
my internet's unstable.
Oh,
Okay.
well, my hope, Matt, is that the leadership of most of the groups that are involved will put together some kind of a little coalition to tackle this, like you said, so there's some unity. Josh, you have your hand up, please.
I do. Great points by everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. Matt, you touched on a couple of things that I was going to bring up, and I'm glad you did. You know, why should anybody care in Indiana? You know, well, not why should they care, but who should they talk to? Just so you give you a little background, my name is Josh. I'm the president of the California Four-Wheel Drive Association. We have Mike McGarity on the line, which is the president of Corva, which is the California Off-Road Vehicle Association. I mean, this is the most in the last probably year or so that we've been working together, and we need to start working together even more. So, I mean, our enemies that we're fighting against have been working feverishly together in unison and as a group far longer than we can even put into words, I think. And unfortunately, we have been I don't know, bitching about who ate the last cookie 30 years ago, and nobody remembers what the cookie was or what the, you know, it's just ridiculous. And luckily, over the past, I think about year and a half, 2 years, we're starting to get more organized. And that's the big thing, Del. I think we all need to get organized. We need to be fighting this together. I mean, I don't have an answer, Matt. I wish I did, as far as who to talk to. I mean, I think we just start talking to each other, you know, forming these alliances and working together. I mean, we have to fight this together, because this 30 by 30 is just downright scary in a lot of different ways, you know, and 30 by 30 is just a small stepping stone and even more. I mean, you know, yeah, I am envious of your 3 acres and being able to do what you want to do and shoot and have a good time and enjoy yourself. I mean, I come from a background like that myself, but what's to say that that doesn't change in, you know, 10 years, you know, and what's to say that the crap here in California, I mean, I've been out here born and raised, and I love a lot of things I love about the state, but there again, there's a lot of things about the state that I just can't stand. That being said, I mean, you know, a lot of the crap that you're seeing from here is starting to spread, you know, unfortunately, like a cancer.
Yes.
And I feel, and well, I don't feel, I'm kind of, I hope I'm wrong, but I would, you know, what if it starts going to other states, these issues and things that happen and stuff, and, you know, I mean, a lot of it falls on lack of education, but anyways, I'm kind of going off a tangent, but my point is that we all need to be working together, and seeing the group of people that we have here tonight is awesome. I'm glad you came on, Matt. Thanks for being here this late evening for you. I mean, it's only 7:42 my time, so it's not too bad here, but you know, I love to see this kind of stuff, and I think we should start working together. I mean, this is one of the major points Todd was discussing at NAMRAC this year, was, you know, us working together and getting together. I love this. This is phenomenal. So I just wanted, I think that's probably one of the things that we really need to start working on more so, is making it to start working, you know, again, and just, you know, start this or continue this process, I should say, and just really kind of bring this, you know, together to a more organized fashion. I think that together, working together, I think we can, you know, make a lot more change for the proper side of this, rather than working against each other, which is obviously silly.
Thank you, Josh. Todd, your hand's up.
Yeah, so, you know, and you know, Josh kind of mentioned it, you know, I harped on it at NAMRAC about the collaboration, working together. And you mentioned it already there, Del, you know, how do you eat that elephant, you know, one bite at a time? But I think that collaboration between all the groups, pooling the money and figuring out where, you know, okay, the battle this month is in maybe, you know, Northern Nevada or California, and then doling the money out as to those little fights and helping them with the resources, whether those resources are people or money or whatever it takes, or information for in a training perspective of, you know, letting the local people know what this is going to do to their, you know, recreation. And it may even include the hunters and fishermen. They don't even realize it yet.
Right.
And so, you know, getting that collaboration with those groups that are in there, and even the recreational shooters that go out there to the forest, it's going to affect them. And so somehow we need to get everybody at the table and get them information on how it's going to impact them. Because, you know, we saw it years ago, most people would not get involved until it impacted them in their trail. And Del, you've talked about that. Most people were like, It's not gonna bother, it's not gonna affect me until, well, then all of a sudden there's a gate at their favorite trail. Now they're like, Del, how come your organization weren't here to keep my trail open?
Yeah. That's the scary part about this, folks, is that, the Clinton thing that Don talked about in 94, when he stood on the edge of the canyon and declared the Escalante, yada, yada, shut down millions of acres, and Desert Protection Act in California. Yeah. All these things were big, scary monsters. Right. 30 by 30 is not a monster yet. And it's going to be little bitty. It's not like the Blob. Oh, I really dated myself, didn't I? Give it up, Todd. This monster is little bitty guys, scary ones, coming at us. See, it's not gonna engage the troops, make them afraid. It not yet, not until it hits their backyard. So that's where we need to
It's hard
commit
to get them afraid. They're not enough people are afraid about Oceano, and not enough people are afraid about Moab.
Well, hashtag save Moab. We had what, 10,000 some odd letters.
Yeah.
Pat McKay, are you, Patrick? Weren't you involved in that Moab business? Wasn't there like 10,000?
Yeah,
No, there was a
yeah,
ton.
there's about 10,000 comments on that from motorized users at least.
There he is.
Yep, just turned on my video. Hopefully you can see me. Not very good
Hey.
lighting, but
Hey.
yeah, I was involved in all that too.
There's about 10,000 letters, wasn't it? That we
Yeah,
on our side,
yeah, I think that was on our side.
22,000 from Johnson Valley, 10,000 with Moab. And it can be done, but these little 30 by 30 guys are going to be sneaky. Doesn't seem like it's going to scare our troops. And like Steve said, we better help them get scared.
Yeah, indeed.
That's what I mean.
Mike McGarity, you got a comment or a question?
Well, sure.
There he is.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry I got on late. It was busy all weekend. I drove 14 hours this weekend, 7 hours
Hmm.
to Ocotillo Wells and 7 hours back for our Truck Haven event for Corba. So just trying to get things cleaned up from that trip. So I don't know what I missed at the beginning, but it might have already been mentioned about how California is not, for some reason, they're not looking at the state parks as being part of the 30%. They're calculating 23.78%, I believe is what the number is. Close to 24% is already part of that 30%. But one of the things that we're talking about, and Amy's talking about when she attends these 30 by 30 meetings, is that why aren't the SVRAs calculated as 30%? Because one of the stipulations is that you're supposed to have soil conservation plans and habitat management plans. But state parks are considered like a tier 4, which is like the lowest tier for conservation calculations. But one of the things that we all need to push is that, no, the state parks is considered public land, even though it's mixed use, and it should be counted in as the 30%. Did you guys already talk about this?
A little bit, not
Okay.
much, a little bit, yeah.
So we just all need to push on that, because that if they calculated the state parks SVRAs into their calculations, we would already be at 30%. So that's, yeah, and that's why we say, well, we're already at 30%. Well, how do you get to the 30% already? Well, it's because they're not calculating in the SVRAs. And if they do calculate them in, it doesn't necessarily mean that they immediately get like turned into a nature preserve, and we lose OHV there. We can still keep the OHV there because
Right.
it falls underneath the tier 4, which we have to have this, like I said a minute ago, the soil conservation plans and the habitat management plans. So they've got some more meetings coming up. You guys all know about the February 2nd and 3rd and Calabasas or something like that. If you can attend in person, that's good. I know Amy's going to be there on behalf of Corva. That's through the California Wildfire and Forest Resilient Task Force,
That one.
right? So, but it's great. Thanks, Dale, for spearheading this.
Well,
And
I just want to get us together because I'm scared, you know, and the rallying cry that you did miss, Mike, you know, the big groups, the environmental groups have already taken it to the next level, 50 by 2050. That's the
oh,
new
yeah.
50% by 2050. Now, you know, I'm not going to be here in 2050, but kids and grandkids, yada, yada. But they've already, no matter what we establish as far as, hey, we're already at 30%. Trust me, they're already saying 50 by 2050. They're going to keep going. That's not going to stop them, even if we convince them that we're 30% into it.
Yeah.
50 by 2050. Yes, who had a hand up? I'm
Steve,
Todd, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, did Steve, do you have your hand up there, Steve?
yeah, I guess so. What do the tribes have to gain out of this? Why are they?
The tribes, the entire Native American community has stepped up in support of this whole concept. The indigenous peoples want the wrongs righted that the environmental movement and the conservation efforts have done to their lands. They're seeing the past 30 years as increment on their ability to do fires, to raise crops, to hunt, whatever. And this effort is to bring back some of those wrongs and right them. It says right in the doctrine that they're going to right the past wrongs.
But if they blame the environmental community it seems counterintuitive, maybe. I guess, I don't know.
That's not quite actually it.
Yeah, two thoughts here there on that, Dell. One of them is, I think, you know, they're using the indigenous folks and that opportunity as a way to, you know, smoke and mirrors. I think that's my guess. That's my gut feel on using them, because as soon as they get all these lands, then they're going to, you know, oh, hey, now they're preserved and you can't use them for, you know, growing crops and hunting and all that other stuff. They're going to keep them off them. And Mike, to your comment there about, you know, like California, you think is already at 30%. I think that doesn't fit their narrative though. Narrative. And so, you know, they're going to exclude some things where we are already using it as motorized recreation, like the SVRAs, because it doesn't fit their narrative. So they're going to try to get that 30%. And then later on, when, you know, they're really struggling to get to that 50%, then they'll probably pull in the SVRAs and some other areas to help them get closer.
Yeah.
That's just gut feeling. And so, but
hey guys, we got about 5 minutes for me to keep this at an hour for you. And I got 2 hands up. So quick, Rose.
Yeah, just to agree with what Todd said about the Native American issue being smoke and mirrors. This is already emerging in recent meetings over the proposed listing of Joshua trees as threatened under California Endangered Species Act. There were actually Native Americans who called in to the Fish and Game Commission meeting to oppose it. And what we're going to see is some tricky business, and we need to be in these meetings to call it out and speak to it, because what happened was there were some Native Americans who opposed it, citing that they don't want to have to abide by endangered species restrictions on tribal lands, that they find them quite irritating and cumbersome, and they would prefer not to have a listing in place because they don't want to be restricted by it. So the director came back and responded to those comments saying, well, we've discussed it and we think that we can exempt Native American lands from these restrictions. And so that's what's going to happen, is they're going to use Native Americans as the guys to have these conservation measures put in place. And then they're going to exempt the tribes from having to abide by them. And so we have to be prepared to call that out.
All right. Patrick, hands up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a little more with Native American stuff, that it's not so much that they want to right the wrongs that like conservation has done to them. It's more right the wrongs of like colonialism and like the past, basically just the entire settlement of the West. And it's really that these environmental groups have kind of co-opted a lot of these tribes who have strong environmentalist groups or beliefs themselves, mainly because they have animistic religions and they basically worship nature. And so they're just really easy to co-opt by the environmental groups. And one just huge pattern of how this is going to play out is with the Bears Ears National Monument. And they're basically now saying that, oh, the native tribes are going to co-manage the monument, and basically just anything the tribes want goes. And so they believe that OHVs are like disrupting the spirits of their ancestors, and so they have to be kicked out. And it's all that kind of stuff. They're putting that language in the new management plan. They're just blatantly adopting native religious practices and beliefs as the basis for management and kicking out recreationists. So that's more how this is going to play out. And it kind of ties into another thing you might have heard of called the land back movement, which is basically to give federal lands back to native tribes as basically reparations for settlement of the West. So
25
that's
years.
where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah. 25 years ago, I was helping the Friends of Sand Mountain try to save that Sand Mountain duning area because Native Americans claimed there was a sleeping spirit, some kind of monster dragon, I don't know, that slept under the dunes. And the more we rode on the dunes, the more we disturbed the sleeping, whatever he was, that still exists. It's still part of their Native American culture. And we should not, even though we should not make light of it. And we definitely need to keep it on our cards when we play at the table. Only have a few more minutes. Amy, did you want to chime in or anything? Questions? I see Amy Segraves there. Anything, Amy? Okay, well, I'm gonna, oh, thank you, Josh. I'm gonna call the meeting to an end. If we want to do this again, just let me know or whatever, we can make this happen. And thank you all for attending. I call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.